Hello and welcome into the On the Farm podcast, episode 7. I am Jeremy Buch here with guest host replacing TJ Mathewson. Here is Josh Zaklis.
Hey guys, what's up?
So, Josh, we got some stuff to cover today. AL West top 30 breakdowns. There's been a big international prospect signing. Someone has torn their UCL, and we have a few players to mention and some prospects looking to take starting jobs. So let's just dive right into it here. We'll start off with the top 30s for the AL West, starting off with the Astros. Josh, you got somebody?
Yeah. So I was looking at Jordan Alvarez. I like what he brings to the table. He's a 55 grade overall, but really his strength comes at the plate with 55 hit, 55 power. He's an outfielder. He's a first baseman, so the Astros can kind of plug him in where they need him. Even though they just won the World Series, you can always improve. You can always get better. And again, Jordan Alvarez acquired from the Dodgers, and he's supposed to be up in the league by 2020, so he won't be here super soon. But again, by the time he's projected to be in the bigs, maybe the Astros have traded some pieces. Maybe they've lost some pieces to free agency. Can't always keep everyone. He's a good insurance policy. Keep an eye on him to see. Right now he's ranked our number 4 prospect, so keep an eye on him, see if he rises in the ranks a little bit. Maybe they use him as a trade piece. Maybe they hang on to him until they need him.
Yeah, Jordan Alvarez is an interesting case. I mean, he's 6'5", 225. He was out in the fall league for a little bit before he got injured, but he was real good. A guy I got he was also in the fall league. What a surprise. Framber Valdez. Quite a name, but he's 5'11", 170. He's 24 years old. He was signed in March of 2015 by Houston. He was signed for $10,000 out of the Dominican Republic. His last year, he was in High A. He went 2-3 with a 2.79. He had 73 Ks through 13 games, and then in Double A, he had 53 Ks. He had a 5-5 record with a 5.88 ERA. Obviously, those numbers don't speak so high of him, but he has a fastball, a two-seamer that sits around 91 to 96, and a low 80s curveball that has a lot of power, so he can overmatch a lot of left-handed hitters as a left-handed pitcher. He's a guy that I can see just kind of going. He's at 16 right now. I think with the help from the fall league, obviously you can get different coaching and different ideas of how to improve your pitch metrics and everything else. I think he can definitely become, if not a starter, a great reliever with a few well above average pitches.
I was gonna say the Astros. They have some starters. They have Justin Verlander. I'm blanking on Dallas Keuchel. They have a few starting pitchers. We don't know how much longer Verlander is going to be in the league, but it looks like they're grooming Framber here to be a starting pitcher. He started 9 games, he started 18 games last year, appeared in 25 total games, and he didn't perform poorly. So if he's going to find success as a starter, then the Astros are probably just going to use him as a starter. He's supposed to get up to the major leagues next year, ETA 2019.
Yeah, and then just going to another guy. This is kind of my riser in the Astros organization. His name is J.J. Matakevich. He is originally from the University of Arizona. He was part of that 2016 College World Series runner-up, and he batted .376 in the Cape Cod League the summer before being drafted. He was a supplemental round pick, 75th overall in the 2017 draft, and he was in Tri-City in the New York Penn League. He hit .240. Obviously, it's not the greatest numbers, but he had 6 home runs, 27 RBIs. He walked 18 times. He has kind of a .302 on-base percentage, so it's not the greatest. He's not the greatest overall player, but I think he definitely has a lot of power. I think he can be a utility player majority of the time playing at first base. I think that he could be a valuable piece, and if he keeps hitting and can cut his strikeouts down, he could be a very, very good weapon for the Astros in the future.
Absolutely, and if just looking at his stats here, 50 hit, 50 power, but the thing that really I think can prevent him from making an impact at the major league level is his speed. He is running his speed. It's graded a 40 for an outfielder, that's not exactly what you want. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a little bit more speed that kind of puts him in a corner quite literally, either in left or right field. Probably not going to be playing too much center field, especially with his fielding grade of 45. So he certainly has the arm for it, which is grade 50. So I think if he can work on his speed, somehow try to get a little bit faster, I think that would really help. I think it would really help him out, maybe even boost him up in the rankings and give him a shot at a big league job. Maybe not this year, but next year.
All right, we're going to transition into the Angels farm system as the next AL West team. A system that's kind of been revitalized through one large international signing and just a few good draft picks and just some allocations of money properly used, and also one or two players stolen from the Braves.
Wait, the Angels made an international signing?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of shocking.
I don't know. I don't know if I saw that. It kind of flew under the radar there. It's not like they signed what some people were calling the Japanese Babe Ruth or anything.
No, not at all. I mean, he so far it's yet to be seen on what his future holds in the MLB. But we're not going to focus on him today. We're going to focus on some other guys. Josh, I think you had someone who was actually in the fall league as well.
Yeah, I covered the fall league for Pinstripe Prospects, a website that just covers Yankees prospects. So obviously my focus was on them. But I did see Matt Thaiss. The Angels, they sent their prospects to the same team, the Scottsdale Scorpions, the Yankees did. And I got to see Matt Thaiss, and his hitting grade of 55 is not an overshot. He can hit the ball. He puts the barrel of the bat on the ball. He knows what he's doing there. His weakness is his speed, fielding, I guess you can call it that. 50 grade overall at first base, so it doesn't have to be incredible, but he can put the bat on the ball. He's going to hit the ball. And once Albert Pujols is gone, once Albert Pujols retires, which he probably will at the end of his contract, I think the Angels are going to be looking to Matt Thaiss to come up and at least provide a short-term, if not long-term solution for the club at first base. Last year he was at Double-A. Maybe in the good spring can put him up to Triple-A and have him knocking on the door. It says his ETA is 2019. Maybe he makes the September call-up list.
Yeah, I don't think that's a stretch, but I definitely still need to see if the Angels will contend this season and how good, obviously, his Double-A team is doing, because the Angels really don't want to pull him out of a growing development stage just to make one playoff run. I don't think they're going to be that selfish with his development, with how good he can be as a hitter, especially in a league where you can use a DH. The Angels are very outfield heavy in their top 30. There are two guys actually that I have found to be just above and beyond great. One of those is Jahmai Jones, and he is their second round. He was their second round pick, 70th overall in 2015. He is currently in High A, but I think he'll probably start the year in Double A. He has a great ceiling, a 55 hit, similar to Matt Thaiss. He has 50 power, 60 run, and 60 field, which means he can play center field. He can play any of the outfield spots and be great. He's only 20 years old. His ETA is for next year in 2019. But in 2017, he went through A and High A and had a combined average of 282 with 302 average in High A. Also in 172 at-bats. He had...
You know the sample size. It's not like he just got 50 at-bats and had a few good swings. He had almost 200 at-bats.
Yep, and he's basically said, people have talked about him, he has high baseball IQ, he's very toolsy, he's just a good overall player, very grindy. His slugging and OPS are at 446 and 794 respectively. I think he could make a run at potentially Cole Calhoun's job, because obviously Trout's not going to move anywhere, but Cole Calhoun would be kind of expendable if this guy really pans out. Another guy, actually their first round pick this year in 2017, 10th overall, Joe Adell. He's from a high school in Kentucky where he was the Gatorade Player of the Year. He was in both rookie league team for the Angels in the AZL League and the Pioneer League with the Orem Owls. He hit 376 with Orem and 288 in the AZL League. That's through 49 games total. He had half the year in Orem, but he still was able to make a slash line of 325, 376, and 532, which is nothing to shake a stick at. That is a great stat line. He's 6'2", 195. He has 65 run and 60 fielding, 60 arm, so he can also play all three outfield spots. I think there's a lot of future potential for him. He's only 18. Obviously, he needs to develop, and he'll probably be up closer to 2020, 2021. But I think that if he keeps growing, obviously, when Shohei Ohtani is no longer considered a prospect, he is their number one far and away, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking last year, Jeremy. I remember toward the end of the school year at ASU in May, and we were talking about the Angels and a lot of teams. And I remember you saying the Angels didn't have the strongest farm system, but it seems like now they've made some moves, and at least in the outfield, they have a farm system to compete with some of their division rivals like the Astros, like the Rangers, and even like the Oakland Athletics.
Speaking of the Oakland Athletics, we are going to dive into their farm system next. They have some guys at the top. And they have a pretty balanced farm system. It's nobody that's going to be a team changer outside of the top four, probably, but definitely some good contributors. Josh, I think you got one who's actually a former Yankee.
Yeah, I was Jorge Mateo. He was traded to the A's last year in the Sonny Gray deal, as some Yankee fans may remember. So looking at him, it looks like it's almost like he's a raw prospect right now. Remember his ETA is 2018. He's 22 years old, but his grades are what trouble me. He has 50 hit, 45 power. His run, he's fast. He has 80 run, 60 arm, and 55 field, giving him a 55 overall. So he's listed as a shortstop/outfielder. So I haven't seen him play personally. So Jeremy, maybe you can answer this, but whenever I see somebody listed as shortstop or an outfielder, I question their arm accuracy. Am I right to do that, or is that just because of his 80 run?
I mean, it's not out of the question. I think it's more because towards the end, when the Yankees were shopping him, especially when they were close to getting Sonny Gray, they wanted to make him as versatile as possible, so they put him in the outfield, and it ended up working out for him. He did have a good time in the outfield, I guess, a good stretch where he was just doing well. I mean, he's not going to be the greatest arm alive, but it's definitely serviceable. You can use him if you really are in a pinch, if you have an injury. But I mean, obviously, shortstop's probably his long-term mainstay, but I think outfield is also possible.
Yeah, I think A's really, if I'm the A's, I'm looking at his bat, and I'm looking to see what he can do at the plate. He spent most of last year in Double-A. Oh, I'm sorry, almost all of last year. And I think if I'm the A's, I'm saying, okay, can you hit at the AAA level? And if you start to hit at the AAA level, why not bring him up to the major leagues and at least see what he can do if that ETA of 2018 is accurate? What do you think, Jeremy?
I mean, we'll see. The A's are one of those teams where you never know what's going through Billy Beane's mind, if he wants to deal someone or not deal someone, so we'll kind of see how that goes. I kind of want to touch on somebody that I think might be under the radar. He was landed in the deal that put Sean Doolittle and Ryan Madsen in the Nationals organization, and in that deal they got the A's obviously got Sheldon Neuse along with Jesus Luzardo and Blake Trinan, but Sheldon Neuse is just a phenomenal hitter. I think that's just the best way of describing him. He's a third baseman. He's about 6 foot 195, so maybe a little undersized. But, man, this kid can hit and hit and hit. He ended up hitting 360 as an Oklahoma junior before he left to be drafted his junior year. And right now he was able to make it with a 321 batting average through 3 different levels. He went through Hagerton in the Nationals organization, through Stockton in High A, and through Midland in Double A, both with the Athletics. And he could hit for power. He hit 9 home runs and 7 home runs, so a total of 16. And then he also drove in 79 RBIs and was able to walk 40 times. He does have to cut down on his strikeouts because sometimes he is a hit or miss, but He has a 50 hit grade. I would kind of upgrade that now because he has been absolutely destroying pitching in the lower minor leagues. Obviously, he has to make it to Double A, Triple A, and obviously be able to hit in the majors. But I think that is very, very promising based on his numbers last year. He was a second round pick, but I mean, his ETA right now is 2019. I could see it being quicker than that. And I really have a lot of fondness for this kid. I think that he could grow as a player and be a very, very nice utility guy or just DH in that tough AL West. Another guy that I'm looking at is Greg Diekman. He is from LSU. He was part of that runner-up team against the University of Florida in this past College World Series. Right now, he doesn't have a team, but through Rookie League in the New York Penn League last year, he hit 274, which is good just to start. He also had 8 home runs and 30 RBIs. He walked 28 times and only struck out 40 in 164 at-bats. I mean, that's pretty good for a guy in his first year. Obviously, he did go through college, but he's 6'2", 190. He has a 55 arm, so nothing great. His fielding's a little low in the rating at 45, but I think that can rise because he does have 55 power, so he has a lot of power behind his bat. I think that he has a power over hit kind of profile is what people have been saying, and he, as long as he can cut down on his strikeouts and increase his walk rates, I think he can be a perfectly good player in the A's organization.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Again, the A's have one of those farm systems where you got a lot of guys who, if they improve this year, if they continue to improve and do what the organization expects and kind of wants them to do, I think they could be easily one of the better farm systems in the big leagues. But moving on to what I think is the second to last team in the AL West, because it's the Seattle Mariners. And again, with my fall league experience, I saw a little bit of Eric Filia, an outfielder for the Rangers. He's a little bit old. He's 25 years old. I know he stopped playing baseball for a year or two while in college and then decided to go back to baseball. So it puts him on a little bit of the older side of things. But, if he can play, he can play. Right now he is suspended for drugs. As just couldn't stay off the weed a little bit. But honestly, I like the way he hits. He puts the bat on the ball from what I saw in the fall league. 55 hit grade, so you're going to want that. Definitely improving in the field. He has a 45 field grade and a 40 arm grade. But I think if he comes back from this suspension, motivated, knowing what he wants to do, he can turn himself into an outfielder who will put the bat on the ball, contact hitter, and if he can really improve that fielding and arm, he might have a place in the Mariners outfield.
I would agree with you, but also you have to realize he is 25, and this is his second positive test for a drug abuse. I mean, that's a little worrisome. And with the Mariners organization and their top 30 in general, it's very top-heavy. Their top 3 guys, and Kyle Lewis, Evan White, and Sam Carlson, are their team leaders. Like, the future of this team is in 3 players, which most organizations usually have a couple guys that can do that more than just 3. I think the overall talent level kind of drops off after that top 3, maybe top 4. But one guy I want to mention is Art Warren. He's listed number 8 on their prospect ranking. And obviously this doesn't mean a whole lot, but he was drafted in the 23rd round of 2015. That's just nice to see a guy drafted so late make such a large turnaround. He was drafted out of Division II Ashland, and he began his career as a starter, and he has now been turned into more of a reliever. He had some success in the fall league with the Peoria Javelinas. He had 11 1/3 scoreless innings while closing games, so he's obviously been an effective either setup and or closer. He has a fastball that sits around 94 to 98 miles an hour, and he usually had a low 90s fastball when he was a starter. His pitches have late life, which is really, really nice to point out. In Modesto last year, though, when he was still a starter. He went 3-1, 3.06 ERA through 43 games. Actually, he had 8 saves, so I guess they converted him mid-season, and he struck out 67. So I mean, he's very very good. He knows how to manipulate his pitches to distract or fool batters. He also has a 70 fastball, which is just insane. Which is why I think the Mariners said we should probably move him to a bullpen, more of a bullpen role, maybe a closer. His sliders are 55 and his curveballs are 50. So those 3 pitches alone are 3 pitches that he can use at will to confuse batters at any point. And I think his ETA is actually this year of 2018. I don't know if he starts the year on the team, but I think he's definitely up by midseason.
Yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely see him on the Mariners this year. There's not a ton expected of the Mariners, so they might be trying out some people for the future, like an Art Warren. And if he makes a good impression, maybe he has a chance to really start the season with the team next year. The thing that concerns me most is his overall grade of 45 and his control of 45. Despite the fastball, if you can't locate it, hitters are going to be able to take a bunch of walks, especially major league hitters. So that's what I think he's probably working on. But, Jeremy, I think we're moving on to our last AL West team, the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, the Texas Rangers. This is a team that somehow almost every year looks to contend for a good amount of the season, and then towards the end they kind of fall apart or just lose some games that they really need to win. But their farm system looks pretty solid. I mean, Willie Calhoun in that Yu Darvish trade was huge. I think that was a guy that really benefited the organization. But I want to focus more on a guy that I really like. A guy I was actually able to watch at the Rangers-A's spring training game yesterday. His name's Ronald Guzman. He's a first baseman. He's 6'5", 225. He's 23, and he was signed July 2nd of 2011 by the Rangers. He's also number 8 on the top 10 first base prospects by MLB Pipeline. He is able to hit. He has a 55 hit grade, 50 power, 50 fielding. So he's just overall a 50 player. His running is very, very poor at 30. But at the end of the day, he hit 298. He had an on-base percentage of 372 and an OPS of 806. So that's very, very good. He looks to be a big power hitter, not like the Rangers don't already have that in Joey Gallo and potentially Nomar Mazara. But definitely adding to that boom or bust, getting some runs behind your pitchers kind of mentality that I think John Daniels has kind of adopted at this point. He has been one of the most consistent hitters in the Texas organization, and he already reached AAA at the age of 21. So he kind of had some time where he's struggled, I guess, a little bit against AAA. I think they're just waiting for the right time to bring him up. But his ETA is 2018. He looks to be just the next big power bat to make it to the AL West.
Yeah. So with Guzman, I look at him and I see a classic first baseman. I see a guy who can hit the ball for power, hit it out of the park, decent fielding, decent overall, and is not going to be the one to beat out a chopper single to third base. But honestly, if you can get 25 home runs out of a guy, you don't need him to beat out those chopper singles. I think he's definitely got the potential for a future. I think if he continues to hit, the Rangers will probably bring him up, especially if they are in a close pennant race and maybe try to, not a pennant race, but a race for the postseason, and use him possibly off the bench, possibly in particular matchup since he's a lefty hitter, and see if he can get some clutch hits for them. So I could absolutely see the Rangers using him in that scenario.
And that's going to wrap it up for our top 30 prospect breakdowns of the AL West. We're going to move into the Rangers again, actually, another AL West news break here. Yeah, sticking with the Rangers. They have signed Cuban prospect, the number 2 international prospect, outfielder Julio Pablo Martinez, a $2.8 million signing bonus today. It was the first day he could sign with a major league club. The club as of yesterday, had not confirmed the deal, but it came out later today that the club has. He's 5'10", and he was just very, very high up in the rankings due to his mix of speed and power. And the Rangers had been adding to their international bonus pool through trades with the Reds and Royals during spring training. But he looks to be just another piece of their farm system, whether it's for a trade, maybe for some pitching, which wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, but also just in general for a nice top prospect to put atop that system that's already looking nice as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never a bad move if you can to add talent, even if that's a position where you have a lot of talent. I know the Rangers have a few outfielders that they might be looking for ahead of this guy, or even with Julio Pablo Martinez. But if you can add a lot of talent, like we've seen some teams like the Cubs do, like the Indians have, like the Yankees have recently, where you have almost too much of a position, and then you can trade away some of those prospects for positions that you might need, positions that you want if you're going for the postseason, like you mentioned the Rangers might want to do this year. So even if they wind up trading him or using him to land a big league star from a team that won't make the postseason, I think it's a good signing for them. He can come up and he can contribute to the team, or he can contribute to the team in a trade.
So I actually pulled up some of his scouting grades by MLB Pipeline. He has a 70 run and a 60 field, which that alone should just tell you he could be almost Kevin Pillar-like, where he can just make acrobatic catches, steal bases at will. He also has above average power at 50, but I think that he could start in Class High A or Double A, depending when he signs, when the Rangers decide to bring him over. He was also in trouble with MLB for some what they called paperwork violations, where they decided to charge him $100,000. I don't know where the MLB got $100,000 from, but that's what they got.
Well, he has $2.8 million now, so I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think he'll be just fine. Moving on to our next talking point. Somebody tore their UCL. God, the Rays cannot catch a break. Another one of their pitching prospects has torn their ACL. Jose De Leon has torn his throwing arm UCL, which hurts because they had already lost Brett Honeywell, the knuckleballer, or the screwballer, as many know him. He was De Leon was part of the Dodgers trade with Logan Forsythe last season. And De Leon battled arm trouble last year and spent most of the time in the minors. He only threw 38 and a third innings with a 3.05 ERA. And he was not the greatest. He was not what the Rays were looking for at first, but he was starting to look promising, and this just sets them back a lot. They were looking to just kind of see what they had. Obviously, they are more in a rebuilding stage. So now the Rays are probably going to use some kind of... They're planning to use a four-man rotation this season between Chris Archer, Blake Snell, Jake Faria, and Nathan Eovaldi. Their whole depth chart includes also Matt Andriese, Anthony Banda, and Yanni Chirinos now that Honeywell and De Leon are out. So it's just the Rays do have this reputation of being a pitching factory, but right now they've lost both of their top pitching prospects to Tommy John. So obviously I don't think the pitching prospect part is in question for their pitching factory reputation, but I just think the idea that maybe how hard they're working them or what kind of drills they're running or just hurting their pitchers might be something to look into. But it's very, very sad to see this, as the Rays were already going to be bad this year.
Yeah, so the Rays didn't have sky-high expectations, unlike some of the other teams in their division, like the Yankees, like the Red Sox. But, yeah, it's never good to see a guy go down with his injury. But I kind of have a question for you, Jeremy. They said Jose De Leon, he was up with the team last year. He was pitching, but there were some reports of arm trouble. There were some reports that he was having some pain. And now that he's out with Tommy John, do you think, maybe had the Rays pulled him a little bit earlier, maybe had they done a little bit more investigating, maybe do you think there's a chance that this could have been prevented or this could have been done earlier to have less of an impact on their season?
Well, I mean, yes, obviously, looking back, hindsight is 2020. Maybe when he said, "Oh, I have arm trouble," it's not just stiffness or tightness or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's the fact that his arm was starting to deteriorate, or his elbow in this case. But I mean, he had arm trouble. I think it was more towards the upper part of his arm, not as much by the elbow. But yeah, I mean, I think just a general checkup might have been nice, but we obviously aren't in the Rays organization. We don't know what happened, but
No, we are not.
we'll see what happens in the future and hope him a speedy recovery as he looks to get back. Yeah, and moving on, we have obviously our Twitter page at On the Farm Show on Twitter, and over the last week, we've kind of compiled Cactus League prospects of the day and some Grapefruit League prospects of the day. Just some guys to kind of highlight as our players of the week, if you will. Just some guys that were able to maintain consistent performance throughout the week. One of those guys, in my opinion, would be Willie Calhoun. He's just been able to hit in a lot of games. Obviously, he is now probably going to be a starter for the Rangers, but just the way that he's been able to consistently hit, just like he had in the Dodger system and when he was in the Ranger system last year. He had some trouble when he hit the majors last year, but he has been able to hit very, very well for the Cactus League prospect of the week. And then I would say in the Grapefruit League, I've seen a lot of Magneuris Sierra, and I don't think as many people realize who he is or where he came from. He was the secondary piece in the Marcell Ozuna trade with the Cardinals and the Marlins, and I liked him when he was still on the Cardinals. I like him more now that he has a starting role, but basically Sierra took over after Grichuk started to have some hitting trouble last year. He made it to Double-A in their system and Double-A Springfield in the Texas League, and he was able to hit 269, had 35 RBIs through 81 games, 327 at-bats. I mean, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. He was able to hit 317 when he hit the major leagues. He had a slash line of 317, 359, and 676. So he's not a big power guy. He grades at a 30 power, but he has a 70 run, a 60 arm, and a 60 field. But I think that should just speak for itself that he's a great defensive player. And on top of that, he's found a way to hit for above average. And maybe the power will come as he continues to develop. But he is my Grapefruit League prospect of the week.
So, yeah, obviously I'm checking out the Twitter page over the past week. We didn't get to talk too much, Jeremy, because I was in Seattle on a business trip. But one guy that I saw was Cody Carroll from the Yankees. Again, saw him in the fall league, had a chance to talk to him, had a chance to talk to his manager, Jay Bell, who worked with him throughout most of last year. And one interesting thing that Jay Bell said to me about him was he likes Carroll's stuff. He felt that Carroll had big league stuff, and he went on the record with me about that, which I thought it was interesting. But he said the one thing holding Cody Carroll back was his control, which is one of his lowest, if not his lowest grade, when you look at his prospect profile. However, he said in the fall league, because Carroll pitched amazingly, I think it was around 12 innings, no runs allowed, like 11 strikeouts, something like that. And one thing that Jay Bell, now the Yankees Double-A manager for Trenton, said about Carroll was he liked that Carroll was, as he called it, effectively wild. He was wild, but he still kept it in the strike zone and kept the hitters guessing. And that's something that if you're going to watch Carroll, if you're going to watch some pitchers that have been struggling with control, take a look at how they miss. Do they miss in the strike zone? Is it bad misses? Or is it just off? And do they seem like they almost have a control over how they're missing it?
That's actually a very interesting point. Cody Carroll actually has a chance, I think, to potentially break through, especially with injuries this year to the Yankees, if there are any in that bullpen. I think he could definitely be a key contributor next year. And just our last topic of the show today, we're going to look at some prospects looking to take starting jobs this season. And I want to start off with Dustin Fowler on the A's. he was part of the Sonny Gray trade, and he was with Mateo and James Caprillion. But I think he has the best shot to start this year. The A's outfield was not really set, and with Chris Davis kind of manning more of the DH than the outfield role, I think that Dustin Fowler can be their starting center fielder. They've already come out and kind of said that it's not that it's more or less his job to lose, but basically they are wanting him to have that job come opening day, start of the season. And I think that he could definitely do it. He's incredibly known, or he's known for his incredible defense. He just has this ability to chase down balls, and actually how he got injured originally was he was going to catch a foul ball, or a ball that was probably going to go foul, and he ended up tearing his ACL by colliding with like a shorter, not fence, but barricade, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Barricade in U.S. Cellular.
Yeah, and I mean, he hit 293 in the minors last year, and he had 13 home runs and 43 RBIs. His on-base percentage was 329, and he had an 871 OPS. So there's no shortage of potential with him. He has a 55 overall grade with a 60 arm, or a 60 run, a 50 arm, a 60 field, and 50 power and 55 hits. So, I mean, he can kind of do it all. I think the Yankees just saw an opportunity to acquire a pitcher that they really, really needed, and didn't really know how Dustin was going to recover with his knee, so his speed might go down, which was part of why he was so coveted. So I think that he just found it was a easier transition to trade him, but I think the A's are going to reap the benefits of that and be able to use him long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Yankees they're pretty set with outfielders, especially now with the addition of Giancarlo Stanton. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Dustin Fowler can add to the Oakland A's, because I've always liked him. I always thought he was going to be a good fit with the Yankees. Again, take that as you will, coming from a Yankees fan. But I always thought he would be a good fit in New York. Went out to Oakland, and I'm happy for him. He's going to get an opportunity out there, and he's going to get an opportunity to show the league, why the Yankees shouldn't have traded him, and possibly even be an all-star for the A's.
I don't think that's out of the question. I think he could. Obviously, time will tell. But another guy, a lot of outfielders in this, but Steven Duggar, he was in the fall league, actually on the Scottsdale Scorpions. He has been 2 years now in the Giants system. He is a San Francisco Giant. He was drafted in the 6th round. He's 24 years old, and he has 55 hit, 65 runs, 65 arms, 60 field. His power is the only part that that has not been seen, but in every single game I've seen him, he has hit a home run or some kind of, I think he had 2 doubles the one game he didn't. He's able to hit, he's able to...
You should contact Steven Duggar, tell him what has happened, and maybe he can work out a deal where you will come to most of his games, since you seem to be a good luck charm for him.
You know, if I wasn't in college, I'd consider it, but obviously I have some other plans than just watching Giants games and people not being able to hit the ball at AT&T Park. But I think he could be a very, very good center fielder and probably the long-term solution. He is competing with veteran Austin Jackson, who was signed earlier this year. He had a good year for the Indians last year, but I think that Duggar has the upper hand because he is younger, and the Giants obviously do want to grow the Clemson product as much as they can. So he's finally done with injuries. He had some hamstring injuries he worried about. But it's definitely someone to look forward to coming into the 2018 season. Alex Verdugo is the next one. Obviously, the Dodgers have a glut of outfielders, including Jock Peterson and Kike Hernandez, Yasiel Puig, Chris Taylor, if you want to put him out there. And you got to figure out where to fit all these guys. But quite honestly, Jock Peterson's he's been on the decline since his home run derby during his rookie year. And I think Alex Verdugo can take that job over. He hit .314 in AAA last year, 6 home runs, 62 RBIs, walked 52 times, stole 9 bases, He has a 60 hit grade and a 70 arm. And I mean, that should just show he can hit whatever, whenever, however, and he can also throw from any point of the outfield if he really needs to. I think that he set some records as he was the youngest regular in AAA for the Dodgers. He had a little bit of a rough go in his 23 at-bats in the majors, only hitting 174, but I think that'll only grow. I think it was just a small sample size. He has a lefty bat, which is nice because the Dodgers could probably use a few more of those. I think he could definitely beat out Jock Peterson and be probably the starting center or left fielder for the Dodgers going forward. And then moving down the list, Jesse Winker. The Reds last year had Adam Duvall, Billy Hamilton, and it was kind of like a mix of a few different guys in right. I think Jesse Winker is the solution to that problem. Not that he's competing with any one person, but Phillip Ervin's also in that competition and a few other guys. But I think Winker has the overall potential. I was able to watch a Reds-Giants game a few days ago. I've been trying to make it to a lot of spring training games, obviously being a prospect junkie, if you will. He also was able to hit 314 in AAA. Wow, him and Verdugo have something in common. He had a slash line of 314, 395, and 803. The Reds are incredibly high on him. They said his arm is fringy at best, and that's the other thing that kind of worries me. But I was able to watch him, and he looked like he could definitely throw. I don't know if he's going to be the best thrower. He's not going to be Yasiel Puig throwing you out at home or anything. He's not going to be tripping over himself. But, I mean, he's the number 82 prospect in baseball in the top 100. I think that he has a lot of potential, and if the Reds want to start him this year, I don't see a reason why they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Reds could 100% turn to one of these prospects, especially since they're still in rebuilding mode.
Yep, and then touching on the Phillies are going to be a fun team for the next couple of years. They have a huge depth in their farm. One guy is going to be competing with Cesar Hernandez for the second base spot, and so far I think he's won it. Scott Kingery, he has hit home runs during spring training. He already has over 4. I mean, he is, I want to say, showing up Cesar Hernandez in every way, shape, and form. I think that he's going to be joining J.P. Crawford in the middle infield to make a great double play combination. He was a fall leaguer now 2 years ago, and he has just not stopped hitting since then. He was in Double-A and he hit 313. He was in Triple-A, he hit 294. He hasn't been called up yet. I think he could make a legitimate run at Rookie of the Year if he starts the year off with them because he just has all the tools that he would need. He was a second-round pick in 2015. He has a 55 hit, a 65 run, a 60 field, and a 50 arm. I mean, for the middle infield, the arm's not as important, but he can field like the best of them. I've liked him for a long time, ever since I watched him in the fall league. He kind of had some struggles hitting there, but I kind of followed him afterwards, and he just rose exponentially after that. So I think he could definitely make a true run at the second base spot over Cesar Hernandez. Another middle infielder, Willie Adames from the Rays. Willie is a shortstop and a second baseman. He already came out and said, I will play wherever they need me to play. If I need to play third, I'll play third. He just wants to find a way into the major league lineup. He was part of the David Price trade. He was the big piece. And that says enough that the Rays were willing to part with David Price, the Vanderbilt product, at that point, probably a top 3 pitcher in the league.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, I mean, he's kind of lived up to the hype. He has a 55 overall grade. He has 55 hit, 50 power, 50 run, and 60 field. So, I mean, there's nothing under a 50 there, which is just telling you how good he is. He is a righty. He's 22 years old, 6 foot, so he could play either middle infield spot. He is number 6 on the top 10 shortstop prospects and number 22 overall. I think he can have a very, very nice career in the majors. Right now he's kind of competing with Christian Arroyo and Adeiny Echeverria for the shortstop and second base spots, respectively. Also, I think you got a few more guys in there, but I think that he is the clear cut starting at one of either shortstop or second base. Another guy who's kind of one of those shortstop or second basemen would be from the Padres, and that would be Luis Urias. And Urias was signed in December of 2013. He is 5'9", 160, so I think he's probably going to end up at second base, especially with Carlos Asuaje not panning out the way they thought he would and with Fernando Tatis on the way. Urias can play shortstop if he needs to, and he was actually in the fall league at both, and both shortstop and second. I think he could play either one. He hit 296. His on base percentage was a 398. He won the batting title and MVP award in the California League at 19 in 2016. I think that he has such a bright future and such a what Scott Boras called hot lava talent.
A volcano of hot talent, something like that.
Yeah,
something.
We may be paraphrasing, but more or less, Scott Boras said an idiotic thing, and I had to come at him for it. But more or less, he is a plus defender. He actually grades out at a 70 hit, which is insane. And I've been able to watch him as a plus defender, the amount of double plays and runs he has defended so well. I think that he could be, I mean, yes, probably Tatis may overshadow him, but he will be such a great contributor to a San Diego Padres team in the future. And then just the last guy I want to go over, his name is Yency Almonte. He is a right-handed pitcher from the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies finally made some kind of headway last year after being, I don't want to say mediocre, but not so great. And Josh has just informed me it's a volcano of hot talent lava.
Volcano of hot talent lava. What a quote.
What a quote, Scott Boras. God, this is why they pay you to be an agent and not talk. But Yency Almonte, right now he's still in Major League camp. He is a switch hitter, which is kind of nice because most pitchers have to usually just go from one side, and obviously he is in the NL, so he will have to hit. He was a 17th round pick by the Angels in 2012. He was traded for Gordon Beckham with the White Sox, and then the White Sox swapped him for Tommy Kahnle with the Rockies, and he has emerged as one of the hard throwers in the system. He excelled in two parts of Double-A throughout 2 seasons. He had an 8-4 record between Double-A and Triple-A with a 2.91 ERA. His strikeouts were at 93 through 22 games, which is very, very impressive. He's 6'3", 205. I think that the Rockies will be moving Senzatella to the bullpen, so I think that 5th spot now becomes open because I don't think he'll be a top. I don't think he'll break John Gray or Jeff Hoffman or Kyle Freeland or Herman Marquez, but I think he could be a very, very nice 5 in this deep, deep rotation that the Rockies have built up for themselves. They have a great bullpen. I think they're going to be a surprise team in the NL West. I don't think they'll win, but I think they're going to make a very, very strong push, and there'll be some separation between them as the first wild card to the second wild card.
Yeah, absolutely. The Rockies had a disappointing finish to last season, losing in the wild card game to the Diamondbacks, but I think looking forward into the future, I like what the Rockies have. The Diamondbacks, I think, are hitting their peak. As far as the NL West goes, obviously the Dodgers are the team to beat. Diamondbacks, I think the Rockies can beat them. Padres aren't really a threat just yet. And I am missing one more team, and that team is the San Francisco Giants. That's going to be an interesting team based on the season they had last year and the talent they've added now. So we might be looking at another 3-horse race between the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Rockies.
And that is going to do it for this week, episode 7 of the On the Farm podcast. Make sure to give us a follow on Twitter. Check us out on Twitter at On the Farm Show. Make sure to check out our YouTube and SoundCloud pages for previous episodes as well as this one. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.